and welcome to the Symposium on Bird Monitoring in India. This is the fourth such symposium. We started in 2021. My name is Suhail, by the way. I'm part of the organizers of this symposium. And it's wonderful to have all of you here with us. Just as a background, as all of you know, of course, that birds are a vital part of our component of our biodiversity. But perhaps they're among the best taxa to monitor because they're all around us. They are very visible, they're very audible, they're relatively easily identifiable to species level compared with many other taxa. And vitally, there are many, many people across the world, across the country who are interested in birds. And so they're a really nice subset of the biodiversity that we have to monitor. And what's interesting is that you can think about two kinds of monitoring that happen done by two groups of people. So one is researchers or conservationists who carry out long-term bird monitoring as part of their work. Interesting, very often this is happening on the side. They've got other kind of research or conservation projects that are happening in the long term, and then birds are monitored because they are there in the field. People are in the field. Birds are monitored along the side. Less commonly, the monitoring is an integral part of the specific reason that people are there. So that's on the researcher or conservation side, people who are in it, who are professionals in the field. But as mentioned earlier, there's a large number of the general public who are interested in birds, bird watchers, photographers, and so on. And so there's another kind of monitoring that tends to happen by these groups of people. We call this citizen science now, and this can be, on the spectrum from the more casual bird watching that gets translated into some kind of assessment of how birds are doing, to the more formal monitoring where the same protocol is followed over and over again. And I think that we're going to see representations of all these kinds of different work in the symposium today and tomorrow. And just also to mention as a preview to what's to come, that the monitoring is one part of it. That is that we want to understand how populations and diversity is changing over time. But we don't want to understand it for its own sake. We want to understand how these things are changing in order to do something about it, especially when populations are declining. And so what's very vital is to accompany these assessments of trend with some kind of understanding of why the populations are changing. And so therefore, there's an entire effort that sometimes in parallel, sometimes built into monitoring efforts to understand the causes of population change. And as you know, all of you know from the examples of vultures and bustards and other taxa, it's often not straightforward to find out why populations are changing. It requires deep research, very often takes many years. In the case of vultures, it took a large number of years to figure out why the populations are changing, in order then that policy and management could be put into place. So these things go hand in hand. The description of the change as well as the understanding of why, what are the causes of population change. Again, we're going to hear about both of these kinds of efforts over here. As you know, we're in a bit of a crisis in India and the world. Bird populations are declining tremendously all across the globe, and India is no exception, as you can see from the State of India's birds reports. So we need to really do a lot of work to understanding which species are declining, to what degree they're declining, what kind of prioritization we have to put towards different species, and what sort of research is needed in order then that one can recommend to conservation management and policy what needs to be done. So I think we're all here to share our thoughts about this, to hear what others are thinking and doing about these things. It's going to be an exciting 2 days. So welcome again to all of you. And I will hand over to Monica. Monica, over to you.
Thank you, Suhail. Hello, everyone. And as Suhail just mentioned, that we are now 4-year-old, and it really gives me an immense pleasure. I joined the team when it was 1-year-old, and I'm happy to be part of this team and symposium. And every year, I think we feel that we'll have hard time finding out people who are working in bird monitoring and are sustaining the effort of monitoring birds across India. But to our pleasant surprise, we find institutions who are involved in bird monitoring across India. I am currently a faculty at Azim Premji University, and I teach biology and ecology to undergrad students. However, I spent some good 10 years of my life studying birds in Himalayan foothill and Dehradun, and I leave no opportunity to bring birds of Himalaya in my classroom. And I mean, bird monitoring is one of the things that I am really passionate about. That is something that I studied during my doctoral research, trying to find out indicator bird species that we can use for monitoring the state of our habitats. So as Suhail just mentioned, that the state of our birds, the natural habitat is in really dire condition, and we have to put effort now to actually save these habitats and the enormous diversity that we have in our country. Every year, as I was just saying, that we get this pleasant surprise of finding individuals, institutions, citizens who are involved in bird monitoring. And the idea of bird monitoring symposium is to actually provide a platform for anyone and everyone who is involved in bird monitoring to actually share insights of their monitoring effort and seek comments from a larger community of individuals who are interested, involved seriously and maybe casually in bird monitoring. Over the past 4 years, we have more than 2,400 registrations, and which is actually something that we are really, really happy about. We have had more than 61 invited talks, more than 70 posters, and plenary sessions, as well as group discussions on the themes in bird monitoring. The main goal of bird monitoring symposium is to underscore the value of long-term monitoring of birds, because as we know that these birds are literally the canary in coal mine for us. So by monitoring the state of these birds, we are not really monitoring only the state of these birds, but also looking in future and seeing what's out there for us. This year also we have invited talks, 10 invited talks, 20 speed talks, which is actually a change from the past years where we had posters. This year we felt that the presenter need comments. So it would be comment, and I would say when there are posters, people would look at and give comments on posters that are probably more interesting to them. But this year we felt that every presenter should have opportunity to seek comment, and therefore we have speed talks. So these would be 5-minute speed talk, and I really request all of you to participate in these speed talks and provide your comments. Ask question to these presenters, because these are the one who are making the effort to actually go out in field and record birds in field, in their backyard. So they really need your comments and suggestions. And I think I would not take too long and request Preeti if she would like to talk about the housekeeping rules. If not, then I think I will just request Madhumita, Parveen, Parmeshwaran, Ramesh to start the session on start talking about the first mini symposia, which is about the wetland birds or monitoring birds in wetland areas.
Okay, hello everyone. I am Madhumita Panigrhi. I, with Parveen and Ramesh, will be moderating the mini symposium for today. I am more interested in working on migratory birds and flyaway level conservation. Both of Ramesh and Parveen are also working in Bombay Natural History Society. I'll ask them to introduce themselves first.
Hi everyone. I'm Ramesh. I'm currently with Bombay Natural History Society, and I mainly focus on migratory bird, as Madhumita was saying, especially on the flyway level issues concentrating on the Central Asian flyway related issues. And I also work on this interaction of birds with energy infrastructure, renewable energy infrastructure to be specific. Excited to meet you all. Thank you. I'll be around.
Parveen, would you like to?
Yeah, hi, I'm Parveen and I work with BNHS and mainly studying Indian skimmers at Chambal from past 6 to 7 years. And I will be helping Madhumita and Ramesh in moderating this session. And yeah, I have a talk on day 2, so I'll be talking more about my work over there. I'm happy to be here and interact with everyone.
So coming to the short talks which we have today, we have range of talks starting from Asian Waterbird Census. We'll be touching a bit on Heronry monitoring in Kerala. I will be going through a very unique study by citizen science by citizens of Perur Lake, Coimbatore Forum. We have 2 talks from related to shorebirds, which is one from East Asian Australasian Flyway, another from the Thane Creek of Mumbai, and we'll be wrapping up with the talk from the Himalayas. So going ahead for the first talk, engaging citizen science in waterbird conservation and monitoring, Asian Waterbird Census, presented by Dhruv Verma. He is a senior technical officer at Wetland International South Asia. Dhruv has over 7 years of experience in the sector of nature conservation and heritage management. He leads the Himalayan and biodiversity portfolio of the organization. To us, he is well known as coordinating the Asian Waterbird Census, a countrywide waterbird monitoring citizen science program. Today, he'll be sharing the recent assessment and the future plans for Asian Waterbird Census in India. I'll ask Dhruv to proceed.
Hello, hope you guys are doing well. My name is Dhruv Verma and I work with Wetlands International South Asia. Today I will be speaking about the Asian Waterbird Census, engaging citizen science in waterbird conservation and monitoring. So talking about the umbrella program, which is International Waterbird Census, it's a citizen science program to assess waterbird counts in wetlands and associated habitats. It is one of the longest running internationally coordinated citizen science program focused on biodiversity. It also covers major flyways around the world, providing information on population trend, status, and conservation planning. It was first organized in 1967 and it covers nearly 100 countries across the world. Under this larger program, we have a specific initiative for the Asia region as well, which is called as Asian Waterbird Census. As you can see in the map, how different countries and sites are being covered. So it was initiated in 1987. It covers the Central Asian and East Asian Australasian flyways, covering around 25 countries. Within this region, India contributes to one of the highest number of counts and also number of sites as a part of AWC, and it is being coordinated by Wetlands International South Asia, BNHS, and Bird Count India. Talking about the objectives of AWC, it is basically to obtain annual information on waterbird populations at wetlands in the region, and the census is being done during midwinter. It also supports monitoring on an annual basis for the condition and status of wetlands, and also how we can engage with different stakeholders such as governments, conventions, and citizen scientists for monitoring waterbirds population, distribution, and the trend over long-term period. The key elements of AWC is the coordinated monitoring. the midwinter counts, which is usually one time per year and per site. However, we are also contemplating if we can bring multi-season counts under the purview of AWC. Also standardizing the census on wetlands by defining the counting unit, which can be the whole wetland or also can be a part of a larger wetland. The state of wetland or the condition of the wetland during the census is also being recorded during the census. Now, talking about some of uh, the the key figures, let's say from AWC in India. Let's say the past 8 to 10 years or 15 years, we have covered around 1500 wetlands, which also includes 55 Ramsar sites, representing almost 28 states and union territories. In these states and UTs, we have coordinators, which are either AWC coordinators or the eBird experts or reviewers who help us in coordinating AWC in the state or in the region. Now, talking about the volunteers who participate in it, obviously the number is in several thousands, which includes people from various government departments, forest, biodiversity board, wildlife wing, and other land departments, but it also includes a lot of citizen science initiatives, bird enthusiasts, CSOs, private sector, and so on. Talking about how the information flow in AWC. So it starts with the midwinter count and assessments, which usually happens in January, but December to February is the time for AWC depending on the conditions, on let's say the arrival or departure of the waterbirds, migratory birds in a particular area. The census happens during midwinters. The data being collated at the site is then reviewed by the site level coordinator or leaders or the state level coordinators, and then a collated state level summary or state level data is being then sent to the national and international coordinators for review and collation, and also ultimately preparation and dissemination of the AWC annual reports, which talks about how many sites are being covered, what is the site level species richness and counts, what is the condition, and how many people participated in the survey, and so on. Now, talking about the outputs, it helps, the AWC data helps in preparing wetland management plans, species action plans, which are focused on a particular species or a group of species. It also caters to the National Action Plan for various commitments such as Ramsar, Central Asian Flyway, and so on. And it also contributes to international data sets or databases such as the IUCN Red List, BirdLife, and so on. This diagram presents how AWC is of use at various levels, starting from the wetland itself, where mentioned plans are being prepared, state, where we have the state biodiversity action plans. Also, it helps in identification of Ramsar sites and so on. At the national level, preparing the Central Asian Flyway National Action Plan, biodiversity related strategies, and also at the global level where flyway considerations related to flyways also come into picture. So targets related to biodiversity, waterbird population portal, identification of Ramsar sites, red listing of species, all these things AWC has been contributing to all these commitments and agenda setting, and it continues to do so. Now, in the recent years, we have prepared several annual reports, for example, for 2022 and 2023, but also slightly long term, which is like 7 or 10 years report. which is being disseminated to various stakeholders for their information and also for preparing appropriate conservation strategies and plans. Talking about the highlights of AWC from these reports, for example, we have a good coverage of good participation from states in 2023. A great number of waterbird species and wetland dependent species were also reported in 2022, 23, and so on. I think around 17 IUCN threatened species were documented and reported in the past 5 years. And also in 2023, we assessed the condition or the assessment of wetland for more than 400 sites. We'll speak about it in the next slide. Now, if I talk about the wetland assessment, it basically covers what was the condition or what is the health of the particular habitat during the census. So these information comes from the volunteers who do the count survey, and at the same time also records their observation on the condition of the wetland. So here you can see how is the site coverage, which basically means whether it was moderately covered, something like 25 to 50% of the wetland, or it was covered pretty decently, let's say more than 50%, or it was covered completely, which means 100% coverage, and the census represents the presence of species, the number of species for the complete wetland. So from 2023, as you can see, nearly 1/5 of the wetlands were completely covered, and also nearly 1/4 had a very good or excellent coverage. Similarly, we see the habitat types, although there is a more detailed typology behind it, but in this slide I'm just presenting the distinction between the inland and coastal wetlands. So more than 50% of the wetlands were inland that were reported during the census. Now at the same time, threats are also being recorded, and as you can see, the most frequently reported threat is the domestic sewage, the solid waste, which means either plastic or some other kind of solid waste, excessive tourism, runoff from the agriculture, encroachment, and so on. So these are the threats which came up quite frequently in the last census. Now in the coming 2 or 3 slides, I will present the trend of population of several species. So if you see here, we have collated the trend for 4 species in the past, let's say 15 or 17 years. Although some years are data gaps, for example 2018 and others. And if you see, most of the species have a declining trend by several percentages, not very significant decline, but yes, I think somewhere between somewhere around 7, 8 to 20% decline. But also if you look at let's say the graph of ferruginous duck, the number is increasing, both the counts as well as the number of sites where the species was sighted. And although you might be intrigued by these graphs, but when we looked into the background data, such ups and downs are largely because many of the times reportings from sites where we have either high congregations or very low congregations come up, and because of that these numbers shoot up. So for example, if I talk about the ferruginous duck, I think from 2021 to 23, the numbers coming from the Heatherpur Bijnor wetlands increased the number drastically, and I think it's the same case for 2016 as well. So those numbers, the coverage of sites, what proportion of site was being covered, really has a big influence on the population trend, and that is why standardization of these things are very important. Similarly, for the curlew sandpiper and Eurasian curlew, the trend is slightly declining, and I think although if you see in the graph, the number of sites are somehow increasing, but the reporting on the count of the species is declining. Now, besides the site level or country level trend analysis, AWC also contributes to the more regional or flyway level estimates, where the waterbird population estimates present a more long-term and regional level picture. For example, here, if I talk about the Asian open bill, and you can see the left side diagram where the data from various sites across South and Southeast Asia are being used to prepare the trend analysis, and it indicates that there is a slight or a decent increase in the population of Asian openbill across the South and Southeast Asian region. Now, talking about the challenges, number one being the coordination at site, state, and national level, which I think needs a bit more consistency and also motivation. Number two is about the coverage. Many of the times the numbers don't represent the full picture, because numbers do not say that whether the sites are being regularly covered. So consistent coverage of sites brings more confidence and certainty in establishing the trends. And I think in AWC, a majority of data is also, I think we are struggling with having sites which are regularly monitored with same coverage, with same methodology, so that the long-term trend or the data is comparable. Also, number three, which talks about the experience in not only just waterbird identification, but also counting to really reduce the let's say whether it's an estimation or real count. So to bring more certainty in the numbers, experience and training and capacities are somehow lacking, because sharing one example, when the biodiversity management committees participated or started participating in Waterbird Census, many of the sites had a bit of vague or rounded off numbers for waterbirds, which in a way is good because people are participating, but is not very helpful in using it for analysis. And the last challenge we would like to highlight is the infrequent or incomplete assessments of wetland count sites, which results in gaps in the information about the wetland health. Because most of the people, they submit waterbird counts, but sometimes they or often they tend to forget that along with the counts we also have to record and submit the observations on the status or the condition of wetland during the survey. Now, talking about the way forward, and this is the last slide. Number one, we really look forward to expanding the network of AWC coordinators and volunteers and also I think it brings good ownership, and it fosters ownerships across the stakeholders, and it also improves regular reporting. Number two, standardizing the data collection and reporting mechanism so that at times when coordination, there is some kind of lapse or shortcomings in the coordination, the data which is being standardized and collected in an appropriate manner can be used for preparing timely analysis and reports which can be used by various stakeholders for undertaking management actions. The third point is to identify and feature AWC champions to inspire, to motivate other volunteers and coordinators so that the efficiency, ownership, is upscaled in AWC. And also I think for that exchanges with other citizen science initiatives, it can be on other TEXA as well, but also I think across countries, across region, can also be a good way to inspire AWC network in India. And the last one is the mainstreaming and institutionalizing AWC in management of protected areas, Ramsar sites, so that we have a consistent monitoring and management of waterbird habitats, and also training and I think empowering people, the Biodiversity Management Committee, to integrate AWC in the people biodiversity registers so that they can also exercise the statutory powers they can for supporting the biodiversity conservation as per the relevant biodiversity rules and act of 2002. So with this, I thank you all for the patient listening. Thank you very much. And I hope you enjoyed the slides on AWC, and I really welcome you to participate in the next AWC, which will be in January 2025. So stay tuned and thank you very much.
Yes, we will go next to the Q&A for Dhruv. It was a very good talk, the updates of AWC. So the first question we have is Dhruv here with us? Dhruv, you can unmute yourself and in the Zoom channel, and if possible, switch on your camera.
Yeah, hi.
Hi. Yeah. So we'll go ahead with questions. Do you have a sense of how many people overall since the beginning of AWC have participated in the census?
Madhumita, I think I answered this question in the chat box. So about the volunteers number, I think we did it for 2006 onwards, and before that I have to check. But on annual basis, I think the number ranges somewhere around, let's say between 1200 to 1500 and so on.
Yeah. Dhruv, just for the next question, can you be a little louder? I'm not able to hear you clearly.
Oh.
So, yeah. So there is a question from Praveen J. Do you know if the International Wetland Database is also getting into global biodiversity information facility?
Yeah. So I think this is largely undertaken by the International Waterbird Census. So such exchanges with GBIF or IUCN and all, I think that's largely taken up by the International Waterbird Census team. But yes, I think exchanges do happen between, let's say, GBIF, BirdLife and all. But whether it is in terms of data or, let's say, in terms of, let's say, setting the priorities and all, that I'm not very sure. But yes, I think interactions do happen.
Okay. So another question from Suhail about analyzing the trend that when presenting, when presenting trend in total counts, yeah.
So I think
I'll just read out the question so people know what is the question. When presenting trend in total counts, are you accounting for variation in efforts? Example, number of sites each year.
Yeah. I think I also spoke very briefly about it in the challenges slide. So the thing is, when we were, let's say, preparing these graphs, we can see there are some, strange spikes or dips. But I think it's obviously it depends on the number of sites, yes. But I think it goes beyond that. It also depends on what kind of sites are getting monitored. Because, just highlighting one example for the ferruginous duck, I think the past 2, 3 years, I think the data from high congregation sites are coming up. So, so that's what I'm trying to say is that maybe the number of sites are maybe consistent or maybe slightly increasing, but what kind of sites are getting monitored and what kind of data is which is coming from such sites also has a great influence on the counts. So I think when we looked into the data, I think it's from the Heatherpur and Bijnor barrage wetlands, and there I think the numbers are in several hundreds and thousands. So such, I think, reportings also, increase, the count data, uh, and yeah.
Yeah. Uh, I request Dhruv to take the rest of the questions in the
Yeah.
Discord channel.
Yeah,
Thank you, Dhruv,
do that.
for a nice talk. And for the people who are in the Discord, please post your questions on the channel, and we'll request all the speakers to address it if we are not able to address in the live session. Going to the next talk is Insights from a Decade of Heronry Monitoring in Kerala by Dr. Roshnath Ramesh. Dr. Roshnath had earned his PhD in ecology of Heronry birds in urban ecosystems. Presently, he is working as National Postdoctoral Fellow and is undertaking research on surveillance of zootonic trematodes, a class of flatworms, in the Heronry birds. He is also the secretary and founder member of MARC, Malabar Awareness and Rescue Center for Wildlife, and member of the IUCN SSC Heron Specialist Group. Today, he'll be presenting some of the findings of a decade-long monitoring program that has been instrumental in understanding the distribution and population trend of breeding heronry birds in Kerala. We'll start with the talk.
Hi, good morning to all. Myself, Roshnath Ramesh. I coordinate Heronry Count for Kerala, which is one among the Kerala's common bird monitoring program happening. So today I'm here to share a few insights from a decade of our Heronry monitoring. Okay, so coming to Heronries, I'm sure like most of you know what Heronries are, but just to refresh, Heronries are basically spatial and temporal clumping of nest of colonial waterbirds, that is herons, egrets, cormorants, darters, storks, etc. during a breeding period. And in Kerala, we have around 15 species of these resident waterbirds that nest in various heronries. So these heronries could be single species heronries, or they could be mixed species heronries, and they are basically found in mangroves and wetlands, as you all know. Like they use wetland habitat, and in Kerala we find them in urban towns also. And some species like this woolly neck storks, they are even found to use man-made structures for nesting. So coming to the planning part, in Kerala we have annual bird monitoring meetups, so where all the Kerala birders sit together and discuss their future plans. So once in 2014, during our first meetup, we decided that we'll focus a little bit more about heronry birds, and we'll plan something like a statewide surveys during the breeding season. And for us, the peak breeding period is during July to August month. That's during our monsoon period. And basically, we identify sites from published literatures, or we also did a press release in local newspapers stating that from this and these dates, these surveys are happening. And if anyone finds this kind of birds nesting, please do let us know. So we'll be giving our phone numbers also. And this has worked out well. We got information about a huge number of herons. So before starting the field service, we also conduct online meetups with the district coordinators, district volunteer teams to discuss more about the methodologies. We basically collaborate with a local forest department, that's a social forestry wing, for the logistic support. So in execution, say the birders or the volunteers, they go out to the field in search of nesting sites, and they collect data either manually or like through online platforms such as we tried earlier Google Forms, eBirds, and we are now sticking on to AP Collect. So what generally birders do is that they collect all the information about the heronry sites, that is the locations, whether it's urban, rural, whether it's roadside or like that, the habitat type, the tree character, the tree species, the species of nesting birds, the number of nest of each species, the predominant nesting stage, the threats they face, the site face, etc. So there's a whole lot of data coming from uh, each site. And these volunteers or these birders, they give this data to the district coordinators. We have around 14 districts in Kerala, and these are all our district coordinators. So district coordinators basically compile this information and pass it to the state coordinators. The state coordinator, what they do is that they basically compile whole data for the entire state and publish it annually in our local journal called Malabar Rural. So coming to a few of the insights, like we have a little bit understanding about district-wise number of sites and number of nests. We got to know about how our heronries are distributed across Kerala, and we have a little bit understanding about the composition of nesting birds, that is the species, and that population trend or the nest abundance trends per species, and the threats these heronries are facing. So we can go one by one. This is you can see the district-wise number of sites and district-wise number of nests. You can see whole lot of like there is variation across years. But then too, we have a little bit understanding that if it is number of sites, we have Palakkad, Malappuram, Kannur, which is having higher number of sites compared to others. And when it comes to nest, it's always the Thrissur district which is having higher number of nests compared to Kannur, Kasargod, Malappuram, and so on. So with this we have a clear understanding about where these heronries are located and which district is having higher percentage of nest. So coming to distribution, as we all know, these are wetland birds, but in Kerala, most of these breeding sites are found near human habitations. This is just a cross section of Kerala. It is the northern part of Kerala, showing the Kannur and Kasaragod district, which I basically focus more on. I'm sorry that I couldn't do a map for whole of Kerala, but this is basically a representation for whole Kerala. So most of these birds, these heronry birds, are nesting in cities. So cities are now basically a challenging ecosystem, and more than half of the nests are found along the roadsides, and many are found in non-residential areas such as office buildings, office compounds, temples, bus stands, railway stations, etc. And few are found even in residential areas where people are more living like house compounds, and very few in the natural habitats such as mangroves. So coming to the composition, uh, it is the little cormorant and the Indian pond heron which share most of the heronry sites. That is, they are found higher in number, like they are found almost all the heronries, followed by Indian cormorant, oriental darter, and little egret. And we do have sites, a few sites which is having black crown night heron, intermediate egrets, black headed ibis, great egret, open bill stocks, and there are very few number of cattle egrets, uh, greater cormorant, purple heron, gray heron. They all compile, like they form only just 1% because the nest proportion or the nest number is very less in here. So this is how the birds, the percentage composition of nesting bird are. So coming to the trend, this is just a 10-year data, but if it is a very long data, we could see that up and downs. Then too, we can see most of the birds are like in some year they are going up, nest abundance is going up, and in some years it's going down. But when we look at the general trend with this 10-year data, we could say that black crown night heron is the population or the nest abundance is almost stable, while the Indian pond heron nest abundance is slightly declining. And the purple heron nest abundance is increasing these years because we are now finding so many new sites which is having purple herons. But the gray heron, we could see we have only 3, 2, 2, 2 nests, and some years there are no nests. This is mainly because they are known to nest year round, and it is also possible that we basically do surveys during July to August, and during that period we don't find these bird nesting, but maybe they are nesting in other months. But so we don't have a clear understanding about gray heron. So coming to cormorants, cormorants is a little bit interesting. During Salim Ali ornithological surveys, he couldn't find any nest of little cormorant in Kerala. But later, as I told, the percentage composition, this is the major nesting species which is found across the Kerala. But then too, the population or the nest abundance trend is found to be slightly declining. But the Indian cormorant, which was found very recently nesting in Kerala, that is in 2006. That was the first recorded nesting observation in a mangrove area in Kannur. After which we are now finding it in almost most of the Heronry, and the nesting population is found to be increasing. Coming to greater cormorant, similar to the grey heron, they don't nest during our monitoring period. That is why we don't have a clear understanding about them. But then too, we have few nests recorded in Kottayam, Palakkad, and Wayanad districts. Coming to the data, which is a near threatened bird, what we find was we have a very stable population in Kerala, and Thrissur and Alappuzha district is having higher nest abundance. So coming to egrets, we have all the egrets are almost like showing a similar nesting trend, but nesting trend is almost stable, and we have little egrets more than intermediate egrets and great egrets. Similarly, like during the Salim Ali period, there were no records of these egrets breeding in Kerala. But later, the first reports came in Trivandrum and Alappuzha districts, and now it's found almost in all the districts. So coming to stocks, we have 3 stocks. One openbill. So Asian openbill is found just nesting only in one site in Malappuram district, and the nest abundance is found to be increasing now. While the woolly neck stock, Asian woolly neck stock, is found to be restricted only to the central part of Kerala, and we have around like 30 plus nests. But during our nesting period, during our observation period, we get only 1 or 2 nests. That is just because they also nest after the monsoon season. And regarding the painted stock, we have the nesting trend is almost stable, and we have nest being recorded mostly in Kottayam district of Kerala. When we talk about ibis, earlier black-headed ibis used to be restricted mostly to Wayanad part, which was the highest, which was known to be having a higher number of nests. But nowadays we are finding this species in other districts also, and this population or the nesting population nest abundance is found to be slightly increasing in Kerala. So coming to the threats, it's almost same across the India. It's cutting down of nesting trees, disturbance, and recently in Kerala we had a national highway widening, and as I told earlier, most of the nests are found in avenue trees along the roads. The tree felling along these roads are a major threat to these birds. And these birds, you can imagine 100, 200 birds nesting together in one area. It is creating a little bit nuisance due to the droppings. So basically, public don't tolerate these kind of birds. They basically do whatever they can. They burst crackers, they hang things to distract them. Before breeding season, they also thin the branches or log it off so that they don't nest. So these are all the common threats which these birds face. And coming to the challenges, what we faced was like you can see in 2016 and 17 we had a little bit less number of nests being reported, and that is just because we have a major project on Kerala Bird Atlas. So most of the volunteers were busy with that. And in 2018 we had flood, so we couldn't cover most of the sites. And in 2020, it was the least recorded uh, nest per year. It was the COVID lockdown, so we couldn't do any much of the field work. And after that, 2020, 21, 22, it's doing fine, and we expect to do more now. And the challenges is basically the lack of volunteers. Yes, even though we have a bigger fraternity of bird watchers, we do lack volunteer support. And in some areas like Alapura and Ernakulam, where they need boats, and some districts like Malappuram and Idukki, which span across like huge area, they need more logistic support. So these are all the basic challenges which we are facing. And what we are planning is that we'll be continuing this ahead with the participation of school, college, and public. And some districts have informed that they are basically more interested to do research on spatial and temporal like partitioning, such kind of things. I'm sorry, I'm running out of time. A little bit of breeding studies, and we are now a little bit focusing on disease ecologies. And this is a whole lot of NGOs that support this initiative. And thanks to all of them, and the Kerala Forest Department, the print and visual medias, our mentors, Sri Shashikumar, Praveen J, P.O. Namit, and whole like all the participants. Like this is like there are lot many names uh, more than this. So thank you all for making this happen. So thank you. I think I'm on time. Thank you.
Thanks, Roshnath, for a wonderful talk on Heronries of Kerala. Coming to the questions, so the first is a comment actually. It's that the trend of purple heron count from citizen science eWord to compare it with the counts which you have and see if there are similar trends. A comment by Praveen J. The question by Ashwin is, for the trend graphs, are we assuming complete detection throughout, or are new nests being detected every year that may have existed in the previous year as well? If new, that means existing nests are being detected. How do you think this can be accounted for, especially in the case of increases?
Okay. Thank you, Ashwin. Basically, for what we do is it's a total nest count. So we can't be sure about whether it is new or not. So we are basically taking the total nest count every year. Okay.
The next question is by Brushal. Is there some understanding or correlation that you find between tree cover and nest, as well as built-up environment and nest?
Yes. Thank you for the question. Yeah, we do find some relation, because for my PhD I was working on the same, like basically was looking why these birds are coming to urban areas, and we do find some correlation that these birds mostly prefer highly crowded towns, avenue trees. So urban environment is basically that's what they prefer in Kerala. But we know the Tamil Nadu is still is having these kind of heronries inside bigger natural habitats. But in Kerala, we do find a relation with the tree itself. Like they basically select the larger canopy trees called rain trees and urban areas. Okay, thank you.
The next question is quite interesting. It's by Alan. The proximity of Heronries to human habitat raises concerns regarding avian diseases, droppings, and dandler allergies, which lead to negative attitude towards these birds and their nesting sites. Are there any successful models, awareness campaigns that we can implement to change public perception?
Okay, thank you. It's a challenging question actually. We also do find the same here because you can imagine 200, 300 birds nesting together in a place. Definitely is causing a nuisance. So what we do here in Kerala is that we put up some awareness boards near the heronries, and also we make sure that this during the heronry counts we take local uh, public or school students so that they can have a little bit more a better attitude towards them. But this depends about, like, we had a publication regarding that how people are seeing it. So this depends about how intense the people are with the heronries. So those who are living there, staying there for whole day, they don't they they never support them. But for others who passes by the heronries, they say, yeah, it's okay, it's good to have birds like this. But it's different attitude. I can share the paper there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Roshnad. We'll request you to answer the questions which will be posted by the participants. I request all the participants to interact. It's a wonderful interaction platform. Moving on to the next talk. This is from Perur Lake Forum. It is a decade of monitoring birds of Perur Lake, Coimbatore, an approach to citizen science. Perur Lake Forum was started in March 2014 by G. Parmeshwaran, a retired engineer. The aim and objective of his endeavor was to approach bird monitoring in a scientific manner and to also initiate a community-oriented citizen science program in Coimbatore. G. Parmeshwaran's experience in Seattle Audubon Society, which ranged from starting as a volunteer to a graduate of their master birder program, had played a significant role in putting up this monitoring effort. He is joined in this effort by R. Ravi Shankar, a mechanical engineer, Vridhi R., a software quality specialist and architect, Sai Vivekanand, and Dilip Joshi. The core group has worked as a cohesive team for over a decade by volunteering their time every week. We will go ahead with the talk.
A decade of monitoring birds of Perur Lake, Coimbatore, an approach to citizen science. The Perur Lake Forum comprises a group of dedicated bird watchers who volunteer for monthly surveys of the avian population. The survey was started in May 2014 and continues to the present day. It is usually undertaken on the second Saturday of every month. We believe that the presence of common birds signifies the health of an ecosystem. Their population levels and the changes that occur are the true indicators of the ecosystem. On any given day, about 3 to 8 volunteers participate in the count based on their availability. Perur Lake is a wetland that is fed by the Noyal River and is located southwest of Coimbatore in Tamil Nadu. The count is usually done on a specific time between 7 and 9 a.m. by walking a transect. The number of species are recorded in a checklist, and we use binoculars, spotting scopes, and cameras. Bird identification is done using standard field guides. Our aims and objectives for the count are to arrive at baseline numbers of waterbirds, whether they are residents or migrants, to refine the process of avian data collection, and, if applicable, to replicate it in other areas, to help achieve conservation goals by the interpretation of information gathered, and lastly, to encourage the formation of similar sustainable groups and therefore cover more habitats.
The birds that are recorded at Perur Lake has been categorized as waterbirds and non-waterbirds. Putting together, we have recorded 131 species that belongs to 50 families and 19 orders in the past decade. Out of these, 51 species or waterbirds, and our entire study, including today's presentation, focuses only on them. Here we have listed down some of the common birds that uses the Perur Lake. We have also classified them with status residents, local migrants, winter migrants, passage migrant, and uncertain based on their reporting frequency and population. The most common species are Indian spotbill duck and little cormorant with a resident status, Asian openbill and little egret with a local migrant status. Gargani was our common winter migrant in the first 2 years but has since declined. Some of the common winter migrant shorebirds are little ring plover and common sandpiper. As you know now, we have been doing bird monitoring more than a decade in this lake. Based on that continuous monitoring and data collection, we have published 2 peer-reviewed papers. The first one was based on the data from first 2 years. It focused on the composition and status of waterbirds in Perur Lake by providing an annotated checklist of the waterbirds along with their population trend. It was published in Journal of Threatened Taxa in 2018. The link can be seen here. The authors were G. Parameshwaran and Shivashankar. And the second study was published based on the first 6 years data, and this was published in Indian Birds as Rapid Declines of Waterbirds in Urban Wetlands, a case study from Perur Lake. We are going to briefly discuss its result in this presentation. Along with this publication, we also did an annotated checklist of all the 125 species recorded at the time in the lake in Zenodo as a supplementary to the 6-year paper. This was published in 2023 October, and the authors were again G. Parameshwaran, Shivashankar, and me being the new addition. All the links can be seen here, and I will share the same with you all in the chat.
These are our 2 major results from the 6-year study. When you look at this 6-year graph from May 2014 to April 2020, there is an overall decline in the bird population, including both waterbirds and non-waterbirds. The first 2 years, observations were our benchmark numbers when the bird population was higher and also the migration pattern was consistent. But in the later years, this pattern along with the population has been changed. The second important result is the water level in the lake. For this purpose, the water level is categorized into 4 levels as dry, low, medium, and full. From our data, it shows the medium water level produces the highest population of waterbirds, and which is also true in the case of diversity of species. This can also fit logically that the medium water level produces sufficient living conditions like the presence of fishes, shallow water, and shore exposure. Common bird species are the main representatives of an environment. So we chose 12 common representative waterbirds from each categories like resident, winter migrants, and local migrants. In this table, we have provided the annual mean trend of these birds as sparkline graphs, and in all these 12 cases, the trend is declining. This decline is shown by the difference between the first and the 6th year. For example, there is a decline of minus 95% with a lesser whistling duck. We have also provided an annual decline number, which is a geometric common ratio for population decline. It is minus 45.1% decline for lesser whistling duck per year in the first 6 years. We compared our results with the global trends at similar time frame from IUCN, Wetlands International, and SOIB. The decline in Perur Lake were much larger than the national trends in SOIB, indicating strongly towards local human factors. For example, with the Indian spotbill duck, the national trend indicated an increase of 25% population, but at Perur Lake, 2/3 of its population has been declined.
The 3 main reasons for the rapid decline of waterbirds in Perur Lake are sand mining from June to September 2017, then followed by the establishment of unregulated commercial fishing since October 2018, and finally the road expansion between March 2019 and February 2021. The dry year in 2016 and the failure of the southwest monsoon in 2017 gave authorities the opportunity to execute a sand mining operation euphemistically dubbed desilting. This action dramatically altered the core area of the wetland to one filled with ravines and ridges, inhospitable to waterbirds in general. Following closely on the heels of sand mining and aided by abundant rains from October 2018 onwards, came commercial fishing, which continues till the present day. The unregulated enterprise artificially maintains high water levels in the core area, covering the productive mudflats where most of the gills like ducks, shorebirds, and egrets feed. In addition, the crisscrossing nets under the water are an invisible threat to birds like darters and cormorants, as shown in the picture. The road expansion operation from March 2019 to February 2021 is a different kettle of fish. It primarily encroaches into the wetland as shown in a series of pictures in the slide. The results in the reduction of water spread area and mudflats. Also, the loss of vegetation removes potential roosting, feeding, and nesting sites for waterbirds in general. Next. We are currently engaged in the data analysis of our 10-year survey completed in April 2024. Our preliminary results indicate that overall decline of waterbirds is 14%, but is 60% over the first 9 years. The dramatic turnaround in the 10th year can be attributed to favorable water level conditions. However, a note of caution is warranted because gills such as migrant ducks and shorebirds have declined 99% and 60% respectively over the decade. The most likely culprit appears to be unregulated commercial fishing. We would like to dedicate this presentation to our longtime volunteer, Mr. Dilip Joshi, who is not only 77 years young, but rarely misses a count. We are indeed greatly inspired by his wonderful example. In conclusion, we would like to request like-minded, active bird enthusiasts to implement this citizen science initiative in their communities so that we can strengthen bird monitoring in our country and also enhance citizen science. Our group is also doing a monthly bird count in Anuvavi Temple, which is located amidst a reserve forest in the outskirts of Coimbatore since 2018. Thank you.
We are joined by G. Parmeshwaran and R. Shiv Shankar today.
No, Sai Vivek. Sai Vivek.
Oh, Sai Vivek, I'm sorry. And Sai Vivek today for the question and answer session. So starting with a question by Harish. The effort by Perur monitoring team looks very planned. Is it possible to offer insights into any predictable models in the population's behavior, etc., for native and migrant birds separately?
That is an excellent question. In fact, in our 10-year study, by doing guild analysis, that is what we are trying to analyze. In fact, in one of the slides, the 10-year plan slides, we have actually indicated that the migrant population, that is the long-distance migrants, whether it's migrant ducks or shorebirds, seem to suffer more declines rather than local ones. Okay, so that is something that is interesting to observe. Whether it can be sustained in future by future counts, it is not answerable as of right now. But as a 10-year study, we can preliminarily say that migrant population in general suffer more declines. And intuitive reasoning is actually quite helpful in this matter because, migrants travel long distances. They nest in foreign countries long away. And when they come to these sites to winter, and if it is inhospitable, there might be a tendency to avoid. We don't know. Migration is still, in spite of all the knowledge that we have in ornithology, is still a very complex phenomenon and still baffles many of us, including great scientists. So in this way, we can clearly say that there is a slight difference between how local birds and local migrants and residents react to it, rather than how migrants react to it. And the migrants seem to be more affected by it. That is our, what you would call a preliminary conclusion, but we need to publish that scientifically.
Yes, I think more on this on the Discord channel then.
Yeah.
So another question from Suhail. Do you think that the ducks that have declined so much are simply going to other lakes in the region? Or do you have a sense that the Perur Lake patterns are mirrored at the regional level as well?
That is another excellent question, and I want to thank Suhail for asking that. Overall, the Asian Waterbird Census data from Coimbatore apparently also says ducks have declined more or less in the same manner. We don't know the percentages yet, but they have declined. I'm talking about migrant ducks in particular. But the rate may not be as sharp as it is in Perur Lake currently. Okay. Secondly, I tend to notice many lists submitted to the eBird, because when there is a rare bird that's being promoted or cited and promoted, I should say, every bird watcher in the country is here. And there are two specific things I could mention. Recently in Coimbatore, in Krishnapati Lake, there was a bristled grassbird and I think a palace grasshopper warbler. And then in Nanjarayan Tank in Tirupur, there was this avocet, pied avocet, I guess. So there was a host of bird watchers visiting, and there was a lot of lists submitted. And in practically every one of these lists, there were hardly any wintering ducks, which nobody was mentioning. So, this is something, this is just purely anecdotal and observational, not scientifically cataloged. But since my interest is in that area, I would say ducks have declined definitely in Coimbatore over the long term, more so in Perur Lake because of the commercial fishing aspect, which tends to keep water level extremely high and is very inhospitable for these dabbling ducks. But as a rule, I also see that birders paying more attention to these celebrity birds rather than nobody is noticing the fact that these common wintering ducks are missing in winter. But we are nothing wrong in looking at a bristled grassbird or any of these things. But we need to change our focus to give the importance to common birds also, because they anchor the ecosystem. That is the point I really want to make.
And I'd like to add one more thing, which is that Coimbatore has a lot more water bodies. Perur is the only water body that has not been taken up for any kind of development under the Smart City program. Most other water bodies have been developed under the Smart City program, because of which duck numbers have also reduced. I mean, again, this is by purely observation. I don't have any scientific data, but we know how, because over a period of nearly 15 years, we've been bird watching here. So from that, we can make out the change in the trend. So the question what Mr. Suhail asked is if they are going to some other lake, that is actually not possible because there has been development in this program, because of it there has been a lot of, hard paving done, walking tracks done, etc., because of which the shore has got affected. So that is also one of the reasons why they are not going to other places.
Yeah, and this is a question which is very difficult to answer in a clear way. But that is another reason why Perur Lake Forum wants others to start synchronous surveys every Saturday in these wetlands. So the question that Suhail is asking can be answered either in the affirmative or negative in a clearer way with data to support it. But my suspicion is that wintering ducks have declined, but maybe not to the same extent in other areas. That is my, what you would call educated guess, if I may say so.
Okay, so to the message, there is a two message for the birders to look for other birds as well, and for the planners to look what is going in the development of these lakes. So please, I request you to take rest of the questions in the Discord channel, and we'll move on to the another talk.
Thank you, Madhumita, for giving us the opportunity. We really appreciate the organizers. Thank you so much, and Ramesh Kumar also.
Thank you. Yeah, Ramesh, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Madhumita. It was nice to hear all three wonderful talks. The next talk is on the W3, that is Winter Waterbird Week experiences and lessons from standardized midwinter monitoring of waterbirds in the EAF, that is East Asian Australasian Flyway. The talk is by Shelby, and it was joint effort by Yong Dingley and Shelby. Both of them are from BirdLife Asia Secretariat, and they work closely with other BirdLife partners in Asia to implement conservation interventions at key sites along the Asian Flyway, addressing threats like hunting, pollution, and habitat loss. Together with the partnership, they hope to initiate a long-term synchronized bird monitoring program that can support conservation activities and encourage partners to collaboration throughout the flyway. So, yeah, we can move to the presentation.
Hi everyone, my name is Shelby Wee. I am the Asia Conservation Officer at BirdLife International based in Singapore, and I'm very happy to be able to present today's symposium, and would like to extend my thanks to the organizers for giving me this opportunity to share more about W3. Before I go more into the details of what W3 is all about, maybe just a brief introduction to BirdLife International. So we are a global partnership of 123 partners working together on bird conservation. In Asia, we have 14 official partners, and many of them are located along the East Asian Australasian Flyway. So this flyway is one of the most threatened flyways in the world, with threats such as habitat loss, pollution, and hunting. Some iconic species that use this flyway include the critically endangered spoonbill sandpiper and the endangered Nordman's greenshank. So organizations throughout this flyway have been working tirelessly on implementing conservation activities for these species. And these activities are often based on really robust data collected through bird monitoring programs. And some examples of monitoring programs include the China Coastal Waterbird Census, which started in 2005 and has been monitoring waterbird populations focused on the China's coastal wetlands. Annual counts are conducted from December to February of the following year. Another really good example is the Asian Waterbird Census, which some of you may be familiar with. And it started in 1987 with waterbird populations being monitored in wetlands across Asia, with annual counts being conducted in January. So these two examples are really good examples of synchronized waterbird monitoring programs that really help to support waterbird conservation efforts or wetland conservation efforts throughout Asia. However, when my team and I were looking at these two programs, we realized that the Asian Waterbird Census is one of the only programs where wetlands across Asia is monitored through a synchronized count. However, counts are only conducted in January, which means detailed count information in the other winter months of December and February are less available. And that's how we thought of Winter Waterbird Week. So W3 is how we short form it, and it's meant to complement existing waterbird monitoring programs. And what we do is to leverage the BirdLife partnership to conduct synchronized bird counts across the East Asian Australasian Flyway in the winter months of December and February. January is not included here as the Asian Waterbird Census is held then, and we are aware that most of our partners are actively involved in the Asian Waterbird Census already. Through this initiative, we hope to monitor both coastal and inland wetlands, with the data being consolidated and then shared with the BirdLife partnership. So why did we initiate this? As I mentioned just now, we wanted to collect coordinated count data for the other winter months of December and February to allow us to analyze trends over the entire winter period. We also wanted to encourage collaboration and cross-learning between BirdLife partners throughout East Asian Australasian Flyway. So how do we do it? In W3, we mainly use eBird. So many of you may be familiar with eBird. It's widely used and it's easy to use as well. More importantly, changes in taxonomical nomenclature is automatically updated. So for example, the recent split of the lesser sand plover to Tibetan and Siberian sand plover is automatically reflected in eBird, which we found to be a very important benefit to have for a long-term monitoring program, which is what we want W3 to be. Additionally, eBird gave us the option of making records private. And this was important because we recognize that some of our partners may be conducting counts as part of ongoing projects in collaboration with funders, other stakeholders such as government or other organizations, and may have pre-existing agreements which may limit the extent to which they can share the data that they have collected. And therefore, while we wanted to use eBird for the 3 reasons used above, we also wanted to ensure that our records could be made private, and eBird could allow us to do that. And that's why we chose eBird. In terms of site selection, we gave partners the flexibility to choose their own sites. We only required our partners to conduct counts at one site, but they could do more if they liked. We requested that partners preferably chose an important bird area, an IBA. However, we emphasized that the site that they chose should be easy to access because, as mentioned, we wanted W3 to be a long-term monitoring program. And currently, we do not have existing funding to support this program, and therefore it's important that the sites that we chose to monitor over the long term can be easily accessed. Before W3 first commenced in December 2023 last year, we informed partners of the recommended weeks. So last year, they were 9th to 17th December 2023, and the 10th to the 18th of February 2024. We also hosted a training session involving all participating partners before W3 counts began. This was held over Zoom. And when the counts concluded in February, we had a data sharing session. Data sharing is a really crucial component of W3 because not only did we want to collect data, we also wanted to make this data available to our partners. We want our partners to learn and collaborate, but also to be aware of flyway level trends and threats, and not only the data that's available from the site that they counted. So apart from having a sharing session where we gave an overarching report of what we found, we also sent a more detailed report to all our partners so that they could have a look at it and have a physical copy that they could refer to post-sharing session. So now I will share with you some brief results from W3 last year. So this is the first year that we have conducted W3. 10 of our partners participated, covering 29 sites across the East Asian Australasian Flyway. So you can see that we even had participation from Bhutan, which sort of lies more in the Central Asian Flyway or along the boundary of the Central Asian Flyway and the East Asian Australasian Flyway. We also had participation from Palau, which is not an Asian country, Pacific, but along the East Asian Australasian Flyway as well. And you can see some overarching trends, right? So you have Thailand, where in December compared to February, it had fewer birds. Malaysia as well, more birds in February compared to December. And we had a few partners who could only participate in a week of the count. So for example, our partners in Cambodia were only able to participate during December, Palau as well, and in Bhutan, our partners could only participate in February. And I'll share more about those later. So besides sharing these overarching counts, we also gave a site summary. So this is an example of the site summary from the counts conducted in Singapore. So in Singapore, 2 sites were conducted, both in December and in February, and no threatened species were detected. However, if threatened species were detected, these rows will be filled up. You can see that we also provide the coordinates of the site to our partners because we know that not everyone will be familiar with the Singapore geography. And so by providing these details, we hope our partners would be able to have a better sense of where these sites lie in the context of the entire flyway. Next, we also provide a species level summary for threatened species. So this is an example of a threatened species summary that we gave. Is for the Norman screenshank, an endangered species. In this map, the white pins are those observed in December, and the pink pins are the counts done in February. The maximum count during W3 was 148 individuals in Leh Pak Bia, Thailand. And 148 individuals is approximately 14.8% of the world's population of Norman's greenshank, which really show how important this site is for this species. You can also see that in December, Norman greenshanks were seen in Myanmar and in Cambodia as well as Thailand. However, in February, these birds were only seen in Thailand. Next, another threatened species, which I would like to show more of, is the Far Eastern curlew. Again, white pins are observed in December and pink pins are observed in February. And the reason why I pull up this example is because it's quite interesting to see for this species, the map is so stretched out. You have counts all the way in Palau or sightings all the way in Palau, whereas for the Norman's greenshank, most of the observations were centered over here, Thailand, Myanmar, and Cambodia. So a few lessons learned. The first is what I mentioned earlier, a few partners only commit to one count in either December or February. We're very happy to have them participate. And so we understand if they have restrictions on whether they can commit to both counts. One thing we realized is that when we did the training session, we only did it in November. And we didn't repeat this briefing session or training session in January before the February counts. And so our team is currently in discussion to possibly put in place another briefing session in January to encourage partners to conduct counts in February as well, while maintaining the November briefing or training sessions, just to prepare partners for the December counts too. Another lesson learned is that we realized that a few partners shared more detailed transact information. They didn't only share the coordinates at which they conducted the counts, they also turned on their GPS tracking during their transacts. And on eBird, if you're familiar, you can see when someone has turned on their GPS tracking, the route they walked around the site. And we realized that this is actually really helpful to help us visualize the area that they covered, the extent that they covered. And this is something that we might add to the methodology for the next W3 iteration. So in 2024, we hope to start the second iteration of W3. Hopefully you'll begin again in December 2024 with briefing sessions / training sessions held in November. As this initiative is just starting, we will continually reflect and improve our practices to enable better collection of data. And beyond 2024, we hope that W3 will be a long-term monitoring program. So before I end my presentation, I would just like to thank my key contributors. So all the names on the screen here, they're made up of people from the BirdLife Asia Secretariat, but also key partners along the East Asian Australasian Flyway. And they helped us really to brainstorm, to ideate, to engage our wider partnership. I'll also like to thank our many partners and volunteers who participated in our first iteration of W3. They are the reason why I'm able to come up here and present the results of our initiative today. So really a huge thanks to everyone who helped organize and participate our first W3 initiative. And thank you. That's the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to myself, Shelby, at my first emails on top right there, or to my colleagues Stingley and Ariana. Thank you.
Yeah, Shelby, there are a couple of questions for your talk. I think the first one was by Praveen, but he said it's already, we understood the question. But if you want to elaborate, he has asked, does W3 use all 3 months data or only 2 months, that is excluding the January AWCA?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that question. So to clarify, most of our partners only collected data in 2 months, which was February and December. There were two partners who managed to share data in the January AWC month. And so for those two partners, we included the data. For the others who weren't able to share data for January EWC, likely because they were doing it together with their governments or through other programs, we respected their decisions and we didn't include them. Yeah, so as long as partners send data to us, we would include them, but if they didn't, then we don't. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. There is one more question from Preeti. Can you share briefly how your partner briefing sessions are structured? How long are they? Are they online?
Sure. So yes, all our briefing sessions are online. And this is because we are bringing together all our partners from across Asia, different time zones, and also they're all located across the flyway. We structure our briefing sessions firstly to give an overall idea of what W3 is about so that all participating partners will understand why we are implementing this initiative. And then we spend a lot of time on eBird. Although we know our partners are very familiar with eBird, we want to make it clear the kind of data that we would need, the parameters, what I mentioned, the presentation about hiding the data from public view. That's something that we wanted to make it clear to our partners as well, so that they knew they had that option if they needed to take it. And usually they are about an hour. So an hour for the briefing, and then we leave 30 minutes for any questions. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. There is one more suggestion from Praveen. In 2024 to 25, perhaps it might also be worthwhile to see how to integrate the Jan AWC data as well. This is being collected anyway, and some integration should be possible and also useful for all other flyway partners.
Thanks, Praveen. Yes, I totally agree. I think we do intend to encourage our partners to share the January EWC data as much as possible and to see how we can integrate that into our analysis, because I think that is one very important count that can be integrated more into what we're doing. So thanks for that suggestion.
Thank you, Shelby. There is one more last question from me. It's for you, Dingley, and the Perur Lake Asia. Are there any plans to do similar kind of W3 counts for Central Asian flyway as well?
Yeah, so we did discuss briefly about expanding this initiative to the Central Asian Flyway because we just started it last year. We decided to just trial it with one flyway first, but definitely we are thinking of possibly doing a similar one for Central Asian Flyway as well. And we will discuss more with our partners and see whether we have the capacity to start it maybe next year, maybe. Yeah, but that's a really great suggestion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shelby. Thank you for joining here. So our next presentation is on one second. Yes, long-term monitoring of avifaunal populations of Thane Creek, Mumbai. It's by Pranay, my colleague Pranay. Pranay is a research fellow with BNHS. He has been working with the collection department of BNHS. He has done 2 masters. One is from University of Mumbai and one is from Newcastle University, UK. Both is on animal physiology and animal behavior. He has been working on the project that involves monitoring of waterbirds at Thane Creek, and he is primarily interested in understanding the movement pattern of the migratory shorebirds. Yes, now we can play with it.
Hello everyone, this is Pranay Karanga. I've been working as a research fellow at Bombay Natural History Society since 2020, while being a part of a project that involves rigorous monitoring of the avifaunal populations of Thane Creek in Mumbai. With this talk, I am very excited to share some information about work at Thane Creek and all the associated wetlands. So before beginning, I would like to thank Bird Count India, Nature Conservation Foundation, LTEO India, and Azim Premji University for providing this opportunity to speak with other researchers around the country. And with this opportunity, I hope to gain some valuable insights on bird monitoring. So why is there a need for monitoring water birds at Thane Creek? Let me tell you a short story. In 2017, a project was authorized by Mumbai Metropolitan Region Development Authority, the MMRDA, to construct a 22-kilometer long sea bridge called the Mumbai Trans-Harbour Link that connects the southern part of Mumbai with Navi Mumbai. This bridge was recently inaugurated, and it is now known as Atal Bihari Vajpayee Atal Setu. The bridge passes from the Thane Creek, which is a key wintering habitat for many migratory waterbirds. Thane Creek is a Ramsar site that receives around 200,000 birds every year, and with the construction of such a massive structure through the creek, it is crucial to monitor the population of wintering birds to see whether this bridge has any influence on their population. Hence, MMRDA in 2017 approached BNHS to monitor the impacts of the bridge on flamingos and other avifauna. So one of the primary objectives of this project was to estimate the occupancy and abundance of avifauna during the pre-construction, construction, and post-construction phases, and suggest a mitigation plan for the conservation of waterbirds and their habitats. So this study started in 2017, and we have planned to carry out this census till 2027, which makes this a decade-long bird monitoring study. Furthermore, this study is specifically carried out every month from September to May. The entire year is divided into 3 seasons: fall, which are fall migration or autumn migration, wintering, and spring or return migration. So all these migrations occur via Central Asian Flyway, which is now evident from the GPS telemetry data obtained from a tagged black-tailed godwit that you can see here. The entire migratory path is visible. So this study was carried out in 6 inland wetlands or high tide roosting sites, which are Training Ship Chanakya, Pandu Pumping Station, NRI Complex, Mankur Salt Pans, Khargar Wetlands, and Belpada Mangroves, along with 3 mudflats or low tide feeding sites, which are the east and west banks of Thane Creek, and mudflats of Siudi and Navasheva, which are the construction sites. The map you are seeing here is made with MTHL alignment. Wetlands are highlighted with red polygons, and the transects are with yellow circles. The entire creek was divided into 40 transects for our convenience, and these transects are approximately 1 kilometer apart. So now let's see, how do we monitor waders at Thane Creek? For the wetland survey, we use the point count technique in combination with another technique called the block counting method, if the birds are congregated in a single area. So in this image, you can see that the birds are congregated on the bunds in the salt pans, and it is comparatively easier to count them. So with the help of a field scope, we count the number of individuals within these imaginary blocks, or we estimate the number of individuals within 2 reference points on the field, and these reference points could be any stationary object such as rocks or trees, or in this case the entire length of the bund. Now all these counts were carried out simultaneously at 6 wetlands, 30 minutes prior and 30 minutes after the high tide time. By doing this for years, we have observed that the population of birds is stable within this 1 hour window, and it becomes convenient to get a count with higher accuracy. Further, to reduce the errors in our estimates, we carried out these surveys in 3 replicates on days when the tides were highest. So moving forward to transect count surveys, we again used point counts. So we have added yellow flags and transect numbers near the mangrove line to mark each transect. So before going for the survey, researchers were given a set of transects that they would be monitoring, and all the counts during these surveys were carried out simultaneously on the east bank and the west bank of the creek. We used hand rowing boats for all the surveys, and during lowest low tides, we stuck our boats on the open mud flats to get an estimate for each transect, as you can see in the image. So further, to remove any bias in the estimates, we carried out the surveys for 4 consecutive days. Now for the flamingo census, similar protocols were followed, but on a different set of dates. So as you saw in the previous image, the number of waterbirds is too high in the creek, and it becomes complicated to estimate both flamingos and waders together during the transect count surveys. Hence, for our convenience, we scheduled both surveys separately on different low tide days. So in the flamingo census, we estimated the number of greater and lesser flamingos, and we categorized them into adult, subadult, and juveniles, which gave us an idea about the composition of flamingos that winter in Thane Creek. Now moving forward to monitoring at construction sites. The construction sites are basically 2 ends of the Atal Setu, Siuri and Navasheva. During low tides, the mudflats at these sites open considerably, and to estimate the birds at these sites, we used the temporary bridge, which provides a vantage point for a much clearer view. For our reference, we used the pillar numbers on the bridge, and point counts were carried out at 15-minute intervals to survey the entire area. So these surveys were carried out on both the ends of the bridge simultaneously for 2 consecutive days. Now let me show you what we have observed from all the surveys. So this is the graphical representation of the abundance of flamingos and other water birds in Thane Creek and the 2 construction sites. The first graph that you see here shows the average abundance of water birds from the last 4 years, where you can see that more than 100,000 water birds winter at Thane Creek every year. In the second figure, you can see the average abundance of lesser and greater flamingos in the creek. So if we combine the numbers, we get more than 200,000 migratory birds that prefer this habitat, which shows the importance of Thane Creek as a wintering ground. Now here I have analyzed the population status of a few near threatened species of water birds in Thane Creek. From the graphs, you can understand that the number of individuals in 2023 is considerably higher than the numbers in 2018, and it is also evident that the numbers of these birds have increased slowly over the years. In conclusion, I would like to add that monitoring wetlands is as important as the monitoring creeks when it comes to migratory water birds. These sites are essential as roosting sites because they provide abundant food resources and a sheltered environment. Also, in our case, the wetlands being so close to the creek significantly reduce flight distances of these birds during the local movement, and which reduces the overall energy consumption. Also, maintaining the quality of these habitats and the stopover sites is essential for the survival and well-being of these birds. The sites serve as crucial refueling stations along the migratory routes, providing the necessary resources for the birds to complete their journeys. High-quality stopover sites offer abundant food, suitable shelter, and minimal disturbance, which are all very important for the birds' recovery and continued migration. Now, lastly, as we move forward, I would like to say that it is essential for us to remain vigilant and adaptive in our conservation strategies to ensure the long-term survival of these waterbirds and the ecosystems they inhabit. I encourage everyone here to support and participate in conservation initiatives and stay informed about the health of our natural habitats. So thank you for your kind attention. I would now...
Yeah, thank you. Pranay, you're here? Yeah.
I'm here. Hi.
Yeah. The first question is from Praveen. A lot of effort, congratulations. Were there dedicated staff to do surveys?
Yeah, there are some dedicated staff to do the survey. So we have a group of 8 people who do all these surveys in the creeks as well as the wetlands. So we cover all the sites as per the protocols, and we start the survey during September, from September, and we try to see try to do everything before May to get the total all the seasons covered.
Okay, great. There is one more question from Ashish. Nice efforts. Did you fix a radius for point counts as in mudflat or creek habitat? The visibility area is widespread, and since there are hundreds of
sorry.
Hundreds of shorebirds flocking during the low tide. Were you able to count all the birds seen?
Yeah. We actually used field scopes, so our radius was increased with the help of scopes. So we kind of did the point counts for somewhere around 100 to 200 meters, which was clear for using the scope. And for other counts, we just took a scan of the entire transact while during the low tides. And as you know that birds usually forage, move with the receding water. So as we get our boats settled on the mud flats, it was comparatively easier for us to see the birds when they move towards the waterline.
Okay. I think we will take one more question, last question. Then there are, I think there are a couple of other questions which you can address in this call. This question is from Tarun. Has asked, has anyone studied the pollutants that is like soil and water in the creek, and if it may affect the birds?
Yeah, definitely. There is one more team who is actually working on the water quality and water parameters of the creek. So they are studying the entire, everything related to macrobenthos, microbenthos, and everything related to the water quality. But we are still trying to correlate all these factors with the population of the waders in the creek. So we still have some data gaps in those months when there was COVID. So we are trying to fill those gaps and get some more data to analyze it overall and get a complete idea of what is actually happening with all the chemical pollution and everything in the creek.
Thank you, Pranay. Thank you for joining. I know how much effort you guys are putting in the Thane Creek. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
So our next talk is on the denizens of the whitewaters, monitoring birds in riverine areas in the Indian Himalaya. It's by Ankita Sinha. She has a PhD in wildlife science from WIA, and she's currently based in University of Sheffield, UK, as a Marie Curie postdoctoral fellow. Her broad interests lie around community ecology and macroecology, and she studies the eco-evolutionary questions using specialist riverine birds as a model system. Now we can play the video.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. I'm Ankita, very glad to meet you all virtually. I'll be talking to you today about my study in the Indian Himalayas on specialist riverine birds. Birds have traditionally been part of wildlife monitoring programs worldwide owing to their indicator values, and this has especially true for wetland ecosystems, which have been monitored systematically across almost all parts of the world, and especially for us in Asia and in India, we've had the Asian Waterbird Census, which aims to collect uniform data on waterbird diversity and habitat conditions. And we started somewhere around 1987 in India, especially happening in the migratory season in winters, when a lot of birds visit India from other parts of the world. And they are censused through citizen science programs where not only trained individuals, but common people who are interested in birds or in wetlands take part in this censusing program. But rivers have never been really traditional part of the censusing scheme in India, despite the fact that India has a large river network system. And there might be several reasons why that is so. Today, through my talk, I will try to address few of those challenges of riverine surveys. So basically, rivers are linear systems, and they're characterized by a very dynamic geomorphology, which is regulated by the hydrological system of the aquatic channel. So they're characterized by the flood pulse, where rivers at different points of time in the year have more water or less water. And hence it becomes very difficult to delineate the riparian margin because the margins always get inundated, sometimes on a daily basis and sometimes on a seasonal basis. And so these riparian habitats are transition habitats, and organisms which live in riparia also have traits which enable them a dual life between the terrestrial aquatic continuum. And it's extremely challenging sometimes to identify what a specialist riverine organism is. So taking inspiration from the Waterbird breeding survey, which has been happening in the UK for many years now, I tried to design something for the Himalayan system where we selected river sections for sampling, and we tried to optimize the representation of different land use types, riverine land use types, designed repeat surveys which could be done across different seasons and multiple years. And we tried and calibrated the river stretch that should be surveyed per site. And we decided if to do point counts, transects, or trail walks to record birds. And also came up with a monitoring scheme which would take care of the logistical issue of doing field work without having a fixed base camp, because we can go for hundreds of kilometers along this linear system. So I started my work along this headwater system of the Ganga. It's locally called the Bhagirathi in the state of Uttarakhand, and runs between the popular tourist spots of Gangotri and Rishikesh. And as I was just mentioning how dynamic river systems are, so the three important parts of the river, the water channel, the bank which gets inundated periodically, and the riparian vegetation needs to be really characterized well to understand how birds use these three aspects of the river environment. And to make things more complicated, especially in the Western Himalaya, there is a lot of flow modification in terms of hydropower development, in terms of the bank getting concretized in larger parts. There are embankments to help protect settlements from floods, and then there is increasing agriculture. And something which is very unique to this part of Uttarakhand is the Char Dham Yatra, which brings in a lot of tourists every year during the months of April to September. And there's a lot of pressure on the river systems in terms of a lot of waste disposal There is a lot of road building and tree cutting and things like that, which affect the river systems directly or indirectly. So to take care of, that, what I thought was I should go and sample other pristine sites, which are away from this particular head stream. So I went to another river basin, the Amrit Ganga, which is in the Kedarnath Wildlife Sanctuary, and the Thane River, which is in the Greater Himalayan National Park in Himachal Pradesh. So overall, I covered an elevation gradient of 300 to 3,200 meters above sea level. The common things between all the sites that I was sampling was all of these streams and rivers are snow-fed and they are perennial head streams in the Himalaya. And I sampled across 2 seasons every year, the summer months between April to June and the autumn months between September to November. Every site was visited thrice, and a total of 68 such river sections were visited. And these were kept of constant length of 500 meter each. This was based on a lot of trial and error with analytical methods. I will talk about these in the later part of my talk. And sites were marked as permanent monitoring sites. I did surveys alone, walking in one direction along the bank of the river, recording birds on both banks. And birds in flight were not counted. And this survey was repeated from 2014 to 2019, so 5 years. And along with the recording birds, I recorded the vegetation structure on the bank, different identifying features about that particular river section, including the number of cascades, the number of bigger boulders to smaller pebbles, river islands, rocky slopes, the angle of the river bank, as in if it's a steep slope or a gentle slope, is it a wider valley form? And things like that, and how much is the wetted perimeter. So, and the details of this are all published, but the important thing that needs to be told here that these need to be done so that we understand how birds use different aspects of the riverine environment. So we found that in the Bhagirathi Basin, the first headwater stream that I was studying, there are around 280 bird species which live along rivers and use the riparian environment in different ways. And they come from a wide variety of bird groups spanning across 59 families, and their seasonal distribution and habitat associations vary across the year. But as I pointed out before, to monitor river organisms, one needs to actually define what specialists are, which are these birds which actually depend totally on the river system for their survival. So these are birds which either directly feed from the aquatic channel, from aquatic resources like fishes and mussels and other mollusks, or exploit the subsidy of food resources that reaches the riparian zone when the river floods or through direct spray. And they especially occupy habitats which have been created by the fluvial geomorphology of these high-energy Himalayan rivers. And that allows a very interesting scope for the quantification of a direct relationship between different river habitat elements and bird distribution. So across some 5 years of data collection of river habitat data and bird presence absence, we found that bird communities in the Indian Himalaya are reflecting a lot of phylogenetic clustering in terms of bird species being quite related to each other. And there is a lot of story around how elevation and the naturalness of the riverine environment are structuring these river bird assemblages. And here, I'm just talking about the specialist river birds, the birds which absolutely depend on river elements for their survival. And we found that this this is a very complicated figure, but to just say things in simpler terms, birds which are smaller and are found along the higher elevations, they depend on terrestrial aquatic diets, whereas bigger body size birds have more aquatic diets and they're found in the low elevation, much below some 500 to 600 meters above sea level. And there are other habitat characters which certain birds specifically associate with. I'll talk about those in the next few slides. But when we look at the assembly level, we find that the birds are filtering along elevation strongly, where smaller body size birds, which have shorter legs and smaller bill size, have insectivorous diets. So basically, they're feeding from insects, which is coming in as a spray of these high energy rivers, and they are found along higher elevations. When you look at the individual association of river habitat features and which birds prefers what kind of habitat, we find that most of these smaller riverine songbirds that I'm talking about, they prefer least modified river banks with intact riparian vegetation, very fast flows. They try to avoid river banks with agriculture, and birds mostly are showing, again, a very strong affinity towards increasing or decreasing elevation, where you see the crested kingfisher, you never find it in high elevations, whereas the dippers, the plumbeous water redstart and the white-capped redstart, they show very high affinity for natural elements of the riverine habitat. Whereas when you look at the blue whistling thrush and the grey wagtail, which we use the river on and off across different seasons, you find they again have very strong affinities for faster flowing river sections, and they use very unique habitat features like river islands very actively. So basically, birds show significant associations with certain river habitat characters like intact riparian vegetation, presence of islands in the river section, fast flow, and they try to avoid river sections which are modified by hydropower development or other anthropogenically modified things like human settlements or embankments for flood control, etc. So using the data across this 5 years on abundance counts, we try to model population estimates of birds, which vary in their dependence on river production, the extent of distribution, and also their detectability. And we used only data from the breeding season because this is when birds guard their territories actively. We tried randomizing our visits to different sites to avoid spatial autocorrelation. And through these replicated counts, we used open population and mixture model where we were following the assumption of non-closure for that particular season to model the metapopulation. But we found that detection probability was much higher in obligate species, that is, species like dippers, crested kingfishers, forktails, and plumbeous and white-capped redstarts, because these species were detected much more than the non-obligate species like grey wagtails, other kingfishers, the white-browed wagtail, which used the rivers more opportunistically, sometimes mostly during the breeding season, or some of them just in the wintering season. Again, bringing out the fact that some birds absolutely had strong connection with river habitat elements. And we found that abundances for most riverine passerines increased during the breeding season with elevation where you can see clearly for brown dipper, the blue whistling thrush, and plumbeous water redstart, the estimates are going higher up. Whereas it's decreasing with increasing elevation for the white-throated kingfisher, the white-browed wagtail, which are non-obligate species, we could not really find very strong support for the forktails because they're very rare elements in this part of Western Himalaya. They are encountered more as we go towards Kumaon and the Eastern Himalaya. We also strikingly found declines in the population trends of 5 species of these birds, which we recorded along the Bhagirathi, with a 5 to 10% decrease across the time span of our study. And this matched with the trends that were published in the State of Indian Birds, where we found that the common kingfisher, the brown dipper, and the plumbeous water red start are actually declining according to estimates from eBird. So to conclude my overall talk, we find that many birds use rivers in different ways, but only a handful of species are strictly tied to the riverine environment for their survival. And hence, if we can identify specialist riverine birds, we can understand changes happening in the riverine environment over time. There exists no standard protocol, unfortunately, in today's time to study specialist riverine birds in the Indian subcontinent. But this puts us on the central stage because we in India have the highest diversity of riverine birds in the whole world. So a rigorous study design needs to be made, especially delineating for features which use floodplains versus mountain ecosystems through repeat field counts, which can give us the correct estimates, population estimates of these birds, correcting for their detection probability. And we can also understand how to devise them better as, the best indicators which can tell us about riverine health. With this, I would like to thank all of you for being here today and listening to me patiently. Thank you. And I would also like to thank my supervisors in India and the UK, my field assistants, people who were along with me in the Wildlife Institute of India and Cardiff during my PhD days. Nilanjan, who's taken those nice photographs, and thank you all.
Ankita, there are a few questions for you on the Discord. The first question is from Preeti. Given your experience monitoring river birds, what advice would you give anyone starting a monitoring program for river birds in terms of protocol to use? I think it is also the same question from Praveen, following question. I think you can answer it together. If someone plans to repeat the survey now, like a decade after your surveys, would you recommend a single person, or his team is okay? Would you have any other?
Yeah, I can see the question here. Yeah, obviously I would, because, this was a part of my PhD and I started doing it alone. But then obviously if you are trying to cover multiple streams and multiple river basins, the best option would be to go ahead with the team. That's what was done years ago when my PhD supervisor and his team, they worked in Nepal across some 20 different head streams. And they collected estimates of, they didn't really monitor the population. So the problem with these monitoring programs is to keep getting funding across multiple years. Because I was doing my PhD, I had to write multiple grants to bring in the funds. But then, these are not birds of conservation concern, and I didn't really get a lot of funds. So it was mostly me and a few interns who came along and worked with me. But then the difficulty is getting funds across multiple years so that you can keep your monitoring going. And in the mountains, as I also pointed out, it's very tricky where you base your, establish your base camp, because you have to keep moving along. From Rishikesh to Gangotri was some 217 kilometers. And in GHNP, it's like fully wilderness. There was no, I had to really camp when I was doing these estimates. So to deploy multiple people to work on ground along such similar situations, you ideally need a very big grant, like NMHS or something, or like they had this NMSHE grant line going on in WI for a while. So if people do bird monitoring as a part of those big grants, which have the amount of money to, put people to field where they could do this parallelly in different Himalayan states and different river basins, that would be perfect. Yeah. And yeah, repeating after multiple years would actually give us an excellent idea of how the population is doing. I didn't really show here examples of, why certain birds might be going down and what might have affected them, like related to the habitat character and things like that. I'm still working on those things. Yeah, I don't really have the results in here, but it's mostly because a lot of places the riparian vegetation has gone down. The native riparian vegetation cover has been removed. I think there is another question from.
A few other questions. Are there detection probabilities based on multi-season models or single-season models?
So the ones that I showed here are based on the breeding season. It's just and this detection probabilities are it's based on multiple years. The 5-year survey that I have done, but they are all estimates from the breeding season. What happens during winter? It's very chaotic. So a lot of these birds winter down to very low elevations. Mostly below 1,500 meters above sea level, like the songbirds. So every 500-meter section is super overcrowded in winter, especially in the Bhagirathi. So I've not really given estimates of the winter section, winter season here. These are from summer, but across 5 years.
Okay, Ankita. I think we can take one more question. It's from Ashwin. I may have missed this, but do the phylogeny and trait association with the habitat and elevation characteristics change with season?
Yes, absolutely. They do change with season, and I have only talked about the breeding season again here. So the strict association of a lot of species with elements of faster flow and native riparian vegetation absolutely disappears in winter because it's a resource crunch period. A lot of birds do move down, but then there are a few among the specialists. There are a few like the forktails and brown dipper, which don't really leave their associations. They still prefer sections which have very specialized diets. The brown dipper especially has an extremely specialized diet, and even the forktails. So in terms of phylogeny, there's not much change because the whole community that we see of riverine songbirds and the elevational segregation that we see along the gradient, that pretty much all of them, they come down. But the distribution regimes do change in winter. But in terms of habitat associations, all the other songbirds, they don't really show any strict association with certain these elements that they show during the breeding season. They do not show that in winter, except the brown dipper and the forktails.
Okay. I think there are a few more questions. I think you can take it on a Discord platform. There will be other questions also. Thank you, Ankita. Nice presentation. We all know that the difficulty in Himalayas, especially the practical difficulties in doing the surveys. Wonderful study. Thank you, Ankita. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we have come to an end for the mini symposium. To summarize, we had 6 talks today, starting from AWC counts from by Dhruv and Heronry survey by Roshnath, and long-term monitoring in a particular location of Perur Lake, Coimbatore by Parameshwaran. And we had a talk from winter waterbird from East Asian Australasian flyway, and also long-term monitoring from Thane Creek, and just now we heard talk from river bird monitoring from Himalayas. So I think on behalf of the organizer, I thank all the speakers and also all the participants to be here. And I think there are a couple of housekeeping announcement. I will hand over to Preeti. Announcement. Thank you everyone again for joining.
Thanks, Ramesh. Thank you so much. I just wanted to quickly take a couple of minutes to thank Ramesh, Madhumita, and Parveen for putting together a wonderful lineup of speakers for this morning. It has been a great session and really interesting discussions ongoing. I request all speakers if you could hop on to the Discord server. There are several questions coming in on Discord, and the discussions can potentially continue well into lunch and even over the next couple of days. The beauty of Discord is that it allows us to do this asynchronous discussion on the platform. So thanks so much for joining us this morning, everyone. A couple of announcements about the rest of the sessions today and when we meet tomorrow morning. The Speed Talks session starts in about an hour, but the channel will be made live now. So you can head on to the 9th August Speed Talks channel, where all the Speed Talks for today have been uploaded, and you can post your questions in the thread. All the speakers for the Speed Talk will be online on Discord to take your questions and post their answers on it. So do continue to interact. I think all the speakers will be online. The Speed Talk speakers will be online on Discord till about 3:30, 3:45 in the afternoon. We meet again on YouTube Live tomorrow morning at 10:30. Our program begins at 10:30, but do keep an eye for the latest and most updated schedule on the website on birdmonitoring.in. We start tomorrow's session with a keynote talk by Dr. Umesh Srinivasan, and then we have an interesting lineup of speakers that will talk to us about the taxa they have been working on and what efforts they've made towards understanding why bird population changes are occurring in the system that they're studying. Let me just quickly see if there's anything. Yeah, I think that's all. Thank you for joining us, and continue to chat on Discord. There's also some fun interaction happening in the polls and quizzes channel, so do take that as well whenever you have the time. Thank you, and see you tomorrow.